It was a tough conclusion to the regular season for the Louisville football team as they fell to the Kentucky Wildcats 26-13 in the Governor's Cup on Saturday. On today's episode of the Locked On Louisville podcast, we're going to talk about Louisville's struggles on offense, what Kentucky did to combat the Louisville pass rush, and the Louisville volleyball team's journey to making it to yet another Final Four. So with that being said, let's get right on into the show.
You are Locked On Louisville, your daily podcast on the Louisville Cardinals. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
What is going on, everyone? Welcome into another episode of the Locked On Louisville podcast. I'm your host, Dalton Pence. I serve as a credential media member for Cardinal Sports Zone. I also do some PA announcing work for the university in various sports. I want to take this time to say thank you all for making us your first listen of the day. And just a reminder that the show is free on all streaming services, 5 days a week, your team every day. On today's episode of the show, we'll begin by discussing the continued struggles for the Louisville offense. We'll then transition into discussing what the Kentucky offense did to combat the Louisville pass rush. And then finally, we will end the show with the discussion of the NCAA volleyball tournament bracket being released. The Cardinals will begin their journey to making it back to the Final Four. We'll start out with the Louisville football loss to Kentucky on Saturday in the regular season finale. The Cardinals offense only put up 13 in the loss. 26-13 was the final score in Lexington. Definitely more competitive than the past three matchups with the Wildcats, but still, that's not going to be something that Louisville fans are comforted by, right? So I think that the defense had a pretty respectable performance, only giving up 26. We'll talk about that in the second segment of the show. But offensively, some of the same issues that we continue to talk about on a weekly basis were problems on Saturday. A lot of it revolving around the passing game. Malik Cunningham was injured, obviously, in that game against James Madison a couple weeks ago. Missed the contest against NC State, missed the second half against Clemson. Played a couple of series in this game. Brock Doman got the start, but neither Doman nor Cunningham were able to get much going. There were a couple of solid drives, but really only, I'd say, two or three. There was the drive in the first half that saw Louisville marching down to the red zone. Unfortunately, Jawar Jordan was given a first down, but after review, it was determined that he was short. And then the fourth down call, Scott Satterfield and company decide to go for it, and they weren't able to convert. Now, whether you believe that his knee was down before reaching the first down marker or not, still a big swing of momentum. So take that for how you will. You can say that it was a bad call, that the call on the field should have been reversed, that he got the first down. But regardless, whatever your stance on the matter is, it definitely played a big factor in this one because of how the game was going offensively for Louisville. When you look at the drives in the first half for the Cardinals, it started out pretty solid. Got a 3-and-out on the first possession. Kentucky started out with the ball. Louisville then had to punt it away. Kentucky answered with a touchdown. That then sparked the drive that Louisville went down the field, 12 plays, 74 yards, but was not able to convert at the Kentucky 13-yard line. Kentucky would then go down to hit the field goal. Brock Doman was sacked on the play, and then he fumbled the ball on that same play, gave Kentucky the ball back, then got another field goal. It was 13-0 Kentucky. Another punt by both teams. Louisville would finish the half with a touchdown. It was a solid drive. Malik Cunningham came into the game, really was able to dictate the offensive flow, took what Kentucky was giving him, and he was able to capitalize on the successful drive with a 6-yard touchdown run. And the drive then cut the lead to 6 going into the half. Louisville was to start out with the ball, but not much going after that. A sack on the very first play of the second half was huge. It was a loss of 9 yards on the play, and Louisville really wasn't able to get much going after that. That was followed up with a interception from Malik Cunningham. In that span, Kentucky went on to score 13 points in their first 3 possessions of the half. At that point, it was 26-7. Louisville did get the touchdown, didn't get the 2-point conversion to cut the lead to 13. And then when Louisville tried to get back into the game, there was an interception. So regardless of how I think the defense played, because I thought the defense had a respectable game, Louisville's offense really just didn't do enough to come out victorious in this one. 13 measly points on the road in the Governor's Cup was not enough to come out victorious. I think that it was a mixture of many aspects. Obviously, that missed opportunity in the second drive of the game proved to be very, very crucial, because you went down 13-0. Had you gotten points to make it 13-3, had you gotten the touchdown, who knows what could have been the halftime deficit. So obviously missed opportunities, it doesn't take many to really prove to be detrimental to a certain outcome. And I think that that was a crucial swing of momentum. It then put the Cardinals down by 2 possessions. But the quarterback play from either Cunningham or Brock Doman just simply wasn't good enough. I think that there were instances, obviously, let's put it this way. Malik Cunningham still battling injury. Is this a different game with a healthy Malik Cunningham? Possibly so. I think so. I'm not sure if the Cardinals win this one, but still I think that they have a better chance of winning. And then not to mention, the Cardinals had to play this game without their 3 running backs that were pretty much the top 3 on the depth chart to start the season. Tyon Evans did not play. Obviously, I think I've heard rumors that he is preparing for the NFL draft. Travion Cooley has since entered the transfer portal, and Jalen Mitchell has not played in many weeks. It seems like the rumors there are that he is no longer with the program, but I don't want to speculate until there is official word out. So Jawar Jordan, Maurice Turner were the 2 running backs for the Louisville Cardinals, and they turned in a pretty impressive performance. I think, once again, the Cardinals were able to be very successful on the ground. 37 carries for 164 yards, 4.5 yards per carry, 1 touchdown. Jawar Jordan over the century mark once again, showing once again that he is going to be a very, very solid player, assuming that he sticks around for next year. 22 carries for 145 yards. Maurice Turner had 7 for 33. Malik Cunningham had 5 carries for 4 yards and the touchdown. And Brock Doman 3 for -18. I think that obviously the -18 rushing yards were attributed to the sacks. But regardless, I don't think it was the rushing attack, but it allowed the Kentucky defense to play off of the rushing attack to keep the Louisville offense in front of them and force them to go down the field, because there weren't much opportunity for big plays down the field for the Cardinals. When you look at the passing game, Brock Doman, 14 of 21, 129 yards, 1 touchdown to 1 interception, 34.1 quarterback rating. Malik Cunningham, in his limited action, 3 of 6, 16 yards, no touchdowns to 1 interception, a 32.9 quarterback rating, 5.4 yards per pass completion. So the passing game still struggling. Now, granted, you may say that this is play calling. I think play calling has some blame to be had. But simply put, the quarterback play just wasn't good enough. Brock Doman was hesitant with his reads, had the sack that turned into the fumble that Louisville then gave the ball away to Kentucky, and that led to a field goal. There were a couple plays Doman held onto the ball too long, underthrew passes, threw behind the receivers, whatever may have you. I just don't think the quarterback play was good enough. Some forced decisions, some forced throws that weren't good enough, just not capitalizing on players running over the middle. But a solid Kentucky defense was just playing the passing lanes and did it thoroughly. Malik Cunningham's interception into pretty heavily contested play that was tough as well. So just not good enough from the Louisville offense. Only 13 points. It's been an issue pretty much the past handful of weeks just struggling offensively. So I think that the Cardinals offense was the main detriment to this game. Defensively, I think that the Cardinals did enough to pull out the victory had the offense stepped up, but we'll talk about what Kentucky did to combat the Louisville pass rush here in just a second after we talk about our friends over at Upside. Inflation has us all thinking about different ways to cut back. Whether that's driving less, dining out less, or buying less from the grocery store, we can all agree there's nothing fun about less. That's why I started using Upside. Upside is an incredible app for anyone who buys gas, groceries, or dines out. With Upside, I don't have to cut back because I get cash back on every purchase. To get started, download the free Upside app and use my promo code LOCKED and get $5 or more cash back on your first purchase of $10 or more. Users are earning more than $1 million every week collectively. That's probably why they have a 4.8 star rating on the App Store. Download the free Upside app and use the promo code LOCKED to get $5 or more cash back on your first purchase of $10 or more. That's $5 or more cash back on your first purchase of $10 or more with using the promo code LOCKED. At this time, I also want to talk to you about our friends over at LinkedIn Jobs. These days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain that you have access to the best qualified candidates available. That's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the right people for your team faster and for free. You can add your job to the site and the purple hashtag hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're hiring. Simple tools like screening questions make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience so you can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and hire. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find the candidates that are qualified that you want to talk to faster. Post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedoncollege. That's linkedin.com/lockedoncollege to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. At this time, I want to say thank you all for making Locked On Louisville your first listen. For your second listen, check out Locked On Sports Today. From the games that matter the most to the biggest stories in sports, go beyond the scoreboard and behind the scenes with local experts and insights only Locked On can provide. Locked On Sports Today, available on this app, YouTube, and wherever you get your podcasts. Moving right on along, over to the other side of the ball, the Louisville defense gave up 26 points in the matchup to Kentucky in the Governor's Cup regular season finale in Lexington on Saturday. As I mentioned in the opening segment, I think it was a performance that was good enough to potentially lead to a victory had the Cardinals offense put some points up on the board. They weren't able to do so, or at least not enough, only 13 points. Kentucky didn't have that great of an offensive performance. Will Levis, 11 for 19, although he was efficient, only had 188 yards, 2 touchdowns to no interceptions. Kentucky utilized the rushing attack to the fullest. 24 carries for Chris Rodriguez Jr., 120 yards. Juton McClain had 10 for 50. And it was a matter of just making some mistakes here and there. I mentioned in the Keys to Victory episode last week that they needed to limit the big play and they needed to get into the opposing backfield and make things uncomfortable for Will Levis and company. They really weren't able to do either. When you look at the second drive, there was the big catch from I think it's Josh Caddis. He ended up with 2 for 76, but he had the 70-yard reception that helped Kentucky get down into the red zone and go up 7-0 in the game. Chris Rodriguez averaged 5 yards per carry, as did Juton McClain. Kentucky did what I think they needed to do to combat the very, very potent and deadly Louisville pass rush. Coming into this matchup, the Cardinals led the FBS in sacks, 41 sacks coming into the game, number 1 in the country. But what Kentucky did to combat the pass rush was simply effective. They utilized the rushing attack and they utilized quick throws, both in the slants and out wide, to essentially make things tough for the Louisville defense. They also did what they've done in years past. They've used man in motion in the offense to throw off and jumble the Louisville defensive reads, but also using the power formation, getting in the I formation, with the success that Kentucky had running the football, Louisville had to respect it. Weren't really able to get many clean looks on Will Levis. When you saw what the Cardinals were able to do defensively, they had 2 sacks and 6 tackles for loss. 1 pass deflection and 4 quarterback hurries. Now you look at those numbers and you think, okay, well, I mean, it's not terrible numbers. 2 sacks, a handful of tackles for loss, a couple of quarterback hurries, a pass deflection. The Cardinals did not force a turnover, which was a very, very tough thing to deal with when you had that rushing attack. But Kentucky, on the other end, they were able to get 4 sacks, 6 tackles for loss, 3 pass deflections, and 5 quarterback hurries. It was obvious that Kentucky, once again, won the line of scrimmage. I don't think that it was as blatant as years past. That is for certain. But I think that the key to beating Louisville defensively is to, combating the pass rush, making it to where they're not getting after the quarterback often. You saw that when Will Levis, when he opted to, throw it quickly, I'm talking about 2-3 seconds tops with his reads. Obviously, Dane Key had a very solid game. Barryon Brown as well. Both of those players caught touchdowns for the Wildcats. Jordan Dingle had a big catch. Rashawn Lewis as well. The Kentucky receivers, we talked about limiting the big play. And let's face it, sure, there was a 70-yard gain, which may, at the end of the day, skew the receiving numbers, but the Wildcats averaged 17.1 yards per reception. Compare that to Louisville's 8.5, and look, I mean, it just simply wasn't the greatest defensive performance for the Cardinals. I don't necessarily think that it was a bad defensive performance. Were there some instances to where, I mean, could they have done better? Yes, there were some big plays that hurt. They weren't really that solid in defending the rush, but hey, they have since never really been able to stop Chris Rodriguez. Since he stepped foot on campus in Lexington, he has been a thorn in the Cardinals' side. And then Juton McClain had 10 for 50. So averaging 5 yards per rush, Mark Stoops and company decided to time and time again continue to going to run the football. And when they did throw the football, it was a lot of quick reads, a lot of slants over the middle, a lot of throwing out into space, out routes very quickly to try to combat that Louisville pass rush. There were some instances to where the Cardinals got into the opposing backfield, both after Levis and the opposing ball carriers. But simply put, it wasn't enough to really deter the Kentucky offense. When you look at their drives, sure, the Cardinals held them to field goals seemingly more often than not, but there were only there were 2 punts in the first half, and there was a punt in the second half. Both of the drives at the end of each half were basically to end out the half or end out the game respectively. So only 3 drives for Kentucky did not end in points. Louisville didn't do a great job of getting off the field on third down, although really Kentucky, well, I guess you could say that Louisville did a good job of getting off the field on third down because Kentucky was 3 of 11, but they were, I should say, struggling to get Kentucky into third down situations. So I take back my original statement that they didn't get off the field on third down. They did more often than not, but it was about getting the team into third down situations. So, I mean, giving up 26 points, holding the opposition to field goals, it wasn't the greatest performance on defense, although I think that, like many games this season, the Cardinals bent but didn't break a lot. They did enough to give the offense an opportunity to win. If Louisville scores 30 points, they win this game. They only score 13. So you can take it as you will. Offense wasn't good enough. Defense did enough to win the game, but still not without criticism, obviously. So We'll continue to talk about the football season before the bowl game later on this week. But to conclude the show, we're going to talk about the volleyball team. The NCAA tournament bracket was revealed on Sunday evening. We'll talk about the Cardinals' journey to making it back to the Final Four here in just a second after we talk about our friends over at Nissan. Our partners at Nissan have worked with us to create a new segment across the Locked On College Network titled Thrilling Moments, where we highlight the most exciting or moment from the Louisville Cardinals weekend action or throughout the history of our alma mater. This week's thrilling moment from the Louisville Cardinals weekend is, spoiler alert, the Louisville volleyball team getting a number 1 seed in the upcoming volleyball tournament. The Cardinals once again looking to get back to the Final Four. This segment has been inspired by the thrilling new designs across Nissan's new lineup of vehicles. Pursue what thrills you in the all-new Frontier, Armada, or Pathfinder today. Available now at nissanusa.com. A little bit of a spoiler alert, as I mentioned, the Louisville Cardinals looking to get back to the Final Four, trying to avenge a loss to the eventual national champion Wisconsin Badgers. Last December, the Cardinals were gifted a number 1 seed for the upcoming tournament on Sunday evening when the selection show occurred and the bracket was revealed. The Cardinals, the final number 1 seed in the field, and with good reason. 5 top 10 victories, a 26-2 record, ACC championship once again. And also the 2 losses on the season, one of them is to San Diego, who is also a number 1 seed, and the other one to Ohio State, who finished the season ranked 6th. So the Cardinals will begin action this upcoming weekend when they take on Samford, the champion of the SoCon Conference. That is on the 2nd, which I think the 2nd is that the Friday? Is the 2nd that Friday? I don't know why I should have already known this. Yes, the matchup with Samford is on that Friday. If they win, they will take on the winner between Purdue and Tennessee, a very interesting 8 seed in this side of the bracket, with Purdue getting that last ranked seed in the region. The Cardinals earlier on in the season swept the Boilermakers at L&N Federal Credit Union Arena, but still a very, very tough opponent. Multiple opponents or possible opponents, multiple teams in the region are ranked. Obviously, we talked about Purdue, who before the end of the regular season was ranked 19th. You have Rice, who is ranked 20th. Arkansas, who got the 6th seed, was receiving votes for the top 25 with 16. But the main storyline, the Nebraska Cornhuskers were gifted the number 2 seed. Obviously, the ties to Nebraska for head coach Danny Busboom Kelly. The Cornhuskers, the 5th team in the country, are heading to the Louisville Regional. They were a very, very solid team in the Big Ten. Oregon, 23-5. They are the 3 seed, finished out the season ranked as the number 10 team in the country. Going on for the other ranked teams, you had Baylor, who was the 4 seed, and the 5 seed obviously was Rice. Miami, Florida, the 7 seed. So the Baylor Bears ranked 17th. So multiple ranked teams. Obviously, that is not a surprise considering that there are 25 teams in the rankings and there are 32 ranked teams throughout the college volleyball bracket. But a very solid field. Obviously, Nebraska, an extremely good team. Oregon, very solid 3 seed. When you look at Purdue is a team that has kind of had an up and down course through Big Ten play. Big Ten, very, very solid. They've had some very solid victories. Same with Nebraska. It was hard to take down Wisconsin. Obviously, Wisconsin, the 3rd 1 seed, has not lost since late September. The other teams that were 1 seeds, Texas, number 1, San Diego, number 2. So the Cardinals, once again, with a number 1 seed, they are looking to get back to the Final Four and getting over that hump and trying to get to their first national championship in program history. Obviously, the main storyline for Louisville is getting back to full health. Anna DeBeer returned a couple weeks ago, easing her way back into the rotation. I would like to see how she plays this tournament, but obviously great to have her back. Claire Chaussee, Amaya Tillman, Iko Jones, Raquel Lothero, some very, very solid veterans in this Cardinals attack. You obviously have Alexa Hendricks, Aiden Bartlett, two solid defenders, and one of the best liberos, if not the best, in hometown hero Elena Scott. So very, very solid team that has the experience from the past couple tournaments to make another solid run. A solid round of 32 matchup could be in play here. Oh, round of 32. I don't even know if there's 64 teams. But let me rephrase. I don't think there's 64 teams. But a solid second round matchup possibly looming with Purdue. The Cardinals did sweep the Boilermakers earlier on in the season, but still a very, very solid opponent. Baylor and Rice in that possible Sweet 16, a very solid team from the Texas area could be looming in Sweet 16. And then obviously Oregon and Nebraska are the most likely possible opponents in the Elite Eight. So a tough bracket for the Cardinals. They did have some opponents on the side that I think it would have been very, very challenging. I'm glad that a team like Minnesota didn't make it into Louisville's side. Minnesota has been playing very, very well. Penn State, obviously, on top of that. Georgia Tech, a team that it's hard to beat 3 times in one season. Kentucky, a very solid opponent as well, winning the SEC. So regardless, to get to the national championship and win, you're going to have to beat some very, very solid teams. So it all starts on Friday with the matchup with the Samford Bulldogs on the first round of the tournament. If they win, they'll play the very next day, 6 o'clock Eastern time, against the winner of Purdue and Tennessee. We will have all of your volleyball coverage and talk about the matchups as the tournament goes along. But that's going to wrap up this first Monday edition of the show. There's going to be a lot of episodes over the next couple days as we wrap up the rest of November. But have a great start to your week. We'll see you right back here very, very soon.